Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us. We're brought to you by Bunnin Chevrolet, our friends, and we're so grateful for them. We're so grateful for you wherever you are. If you're watching us on TV in Santa Barbara, California, here at TVSB, where we welcome you. And so many of you are joining us at these other platforms. We've seen the podcast grow a lot. Good Life Conversations is what you can type in on all the podcast platforms. And then there's a YouTube channel, there's goodlifetelevision.org, and then there's all the social media. So there's plenty of ways to find us. We're just glad that you are from all over the world. I got a message over the weekend from Pakistan, and we continue to see our friends grow all over the world, and we're grateful for that. And we're talking about the good stuff with good people and the stories that you'll find at our YouTube channel. Whether you watch the long-form interviews or some of these power clips of kind of the shorter, powerful moments, I think you'll be inspired. So we hope you are. We're grateful for you, and we hope that you'll stay with us on this journey that we're on. We're grateful today to be in studio at TVSB here in Santa Barbara. We're not in studio very much, but when we are, we're very grateful for this opportunity. And I'm really excited about my guest. Mary Olson is with me. Welcome.
Okay, so the deal is we were supposed to do this at your set in your backyard at your house. So I want to know the truth. Is it really because of the rain that I wasn't invited to come to your house, or you just didn't want me to actually have your address? Come on, Dean, give it up. What'd you say?
Yeah, it's the wet conditions. You're welcome anytime. We'll have you over, especially with that necklace. I just have to comment on the necklace. So Mary's been in radio for a long time, and she has this necklace that is a microphone it's kind of like our Good Life logo, and I'm just like staring at it because it's so beautiful. So her husband, wherever you are, husband, nice work. I love it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Tell me about your love for radio, or your talk about kind of your passion for this medium.
Okay. Well, as you know, I'm general manager for KCLU Radio, which is the local NPR public radio station that serves the Tri-Counties, so Ventura, Santa Barbara, all the way to San Luis Obispo. So we're going from Westlake Village to San Luis Obispo. And I'm fortunate enough and old enough that I'm actually part of the original team that signed the station on the air in 1994. I can't believe it. Wow. We're coming up on 29 years. It's amazing. But I've always loved radio. And it started I remember clearly when I was a child. I was 6 years old, and I was very ill when I was a child. And I was facing a very large surgery. And my dad said to me, if you could have one present, what present would you want? And it's so funny now. I asked for a transistor radio. I said, could I have my own portable transistor radio? Dean, when he showed up at the hospital with that radio, I'm telling you, I was living large. And I remember, well, I'm probably older than you are, so you might not remember this. Remember how it came with a long white one earpiece, you could put in one ear, and you plugged it in, had a little fake leatherette covering on it. Right. And I would at 6 years old, I'd lay in the hospital bed, and I would listen to AM radio, which is, what was I, like 70, at the age of 6? But I would listen, and I would scroll through the radio stations, and it was my best friend, that little radio. I loved it so much. I've always been drawn to radio. Next big momentous gift in my life, I survived the surgery. It was the first Christmas after surgery. What would you like Santa Claus to bring you? And I said, I wish I could have a tape recorder. And Santa Claus brought me a tape recorder. And that I would go around and I would interview people, and I'm the youngest of 5 kids, interview my siblings, interview my parents. And I really loved it. I just loved radio, and I loved news. And my favorite show to this day is 60 Minutes. Like literally, nobody call me at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. Do not do it, okay? Because I'm like glued to the TV. And I guess I wanted to be Barbara Walters. But I remember saying to my mother one time in an interview, so, Mom, how does it feel to be you? That was my big question. I don't don't know what the answer could only be, I'm exhausted. I have 5 kids. I'm trying to clean a
And
chicken.
you're interviewing me right now.
I'm interviewing her at the table as she's.
I love
Yeah,
it.
but I love radio, and no offense to television, which you do now because it's my second favorite medium, but radio is so exciting because it's the most personal medium. Think about it. When you're in your car and you're listening, it's just you and I.
Right.
Or it's just you and whomever, right? You're brushing your teeth listening to the radio. It's personal. You're in the shower listening to the radio. Wherever you are,
Right.
radio, it's just you and what's on the radio. Whether you're singing along to Aretha Franklin at the top of your lungs, you know, if you're tone deaf or not, it's you are a superstar in that moment.
Right.
When you're listening to KCLU, we hope that we're giving you, the listener, the information that you want. But there's nothing else like radio. And you probably can tell from, you know, my voice, I've been at this now for almost 29 years, and every day, Dean, when I drive to work, I am as excited and committed as I was the very first day. And I feel so grateful, and it's such a huge blessing that I get to make a living doing something that I would probably do for free, but you should probably edit that out because I do not want them to hear that,
Yeah.
right? But I love it because it's something that you have anywhere you go, and there are lots of choices on the radio dial, and that's why I'm so excited about radio still. And you might have read in trade publications over the year, well, radio is dying. No, it's not dying. They've been predicting radio's death for decades and decades and decades, right? Now, like you have podcasts, you know, radio stations have podcasts. We have a podcast, The 101. And it's just another extension of what radio can do and bring. It changes. The landscape for media changes. Yeah, of course. So that was kind of a long answer to your question.
I love it. I love radio.
Do you?
My grandfather loved radio.
And you were in radio because you've been in radio.
I started in radio. So
I know.
You want to know what I was doing when I was 17?
Tell me.
So I'm 17. I played my high school basketball game.
The best sport ever, by the way. I'm from Indiana.
Oh.
Come on.
Sorry
basketball.
about the Hoosiers yesterday.
Yeah, you know what? We don't need to discuss
We don't need
that.
to. I'm
we
sorry.
don't have to talk about that.
You
But I'm
mentioned
with you on
Indiana.
basketball,
Okay.
the best sport ever. Okay, go ahead.
So I would go. So I was not going to the party after. I was going to the radio station. I got the overnight shift. Okay.
Nice.
Friday and Saturday, overnight shift on 101.7 Radio Pacific.
That's awesome.
Okay, it's awesome, but you try this, okay? I'm 17, and I did bring some guys and girls into the station with me at times. But there were also times when I was alone. But you try staying awake at 3 in the morning to Smooth Jazz by Grover Washington Jr.
Wine Light, the album Wine Light.
It
you
may
were
have
probably
been.
playing it. Yep.
I did fall asleep a couple times, and we had some dead air. So I'm doing Friday and Saturday night. They're paying me like $9 an hour or whatever. And it was Smooth Jazz Radio Pacific. Like it was one, if it had been hard, you know, like rock and roll or something, like maybe I'd have, but I was out like a light.
But that was such a great shift. That is a great place to put someone who's just breaking into the medium in the overnight shift because, I'm sure your parents were listening and your friends were listening,
Until
but
it
it
got
wasn't
too
like
late,
you didn't have 100,000 listeners at 2
Right.
o'clock in the morning.
You
So
could
it's a
screw
great
up.
place to
Right.
hone your craft and, to
Yes.
fall asleep and let there be dead air because I'm sure the station manager loved that.
Yes, and they let me talk.
Nice.
Eventually, it took a few weeks.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, can I talk? Like maybe I could talk. They let me talk. So then it wasn't just playing the songs. It was this is Dean Wilson. You're listening to 101.7.
But see, it lit a
jazz.
fire in you.
But I loved it.
You
I still
loved
have
it.
the letter of recommendation from Radio Pacific on my office wall.
Nice.
So I loved radio. I thought I was going to be the next Vin Scully, Dodgers broadcaster.
Yes, of course.
And then, he hung on too long.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out. But you're right. Think about, you make the connection how personal it is. Think about Vin Scully's personal connection to millions of people who all think that he's their best friend.
Absolutely.
Isn't that
if
right?
you do it right, that's exactly right.
If you do it right.
If you do it right.
Yeah.
And that's what's so magical about radio. And I know when I meet our donors and our listeners at events, it always touches me. They know things about me because I have maybe mentioned things, without thinking about it. And they'll say, "Aren't your kids getting ready to go to college soon?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, they are." And
they know
hey, have
you.
you been back to Indiana lately? Well, yes, I have, but it is the most personal medium, and there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah. No, that is so true. And I think in this day and age, well, let me ask this question. News has changed, obviously.
Very much so.
So one of the things that I feel like people are always doing is, right, even today, gratefully, they're looking for the truth. It's become a little tricky to find the truth because, especially if you look at what's happened on the television side, it's become this right and left thing, which again, okay, there's a place for that, I suppose. But how do you, as a person who's been in radio this long, and I'm sure you care about the truth, how do you go forward today as a leader in the news business, in a sense? How do you lead today in this environment?
Well, it's an appropriate and interesting question. So we are a little bit different because we're a public radio station, so it's long-form journalism. So what all news should be, whether it's a network affiliate or it's an independent broadcaster or it's a public radio station, our opinions are irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant are gathering the facts. All facts from both sides.
Right.
And our job, if done right, is to gather those facts and just lay them out. And then you, Dean Wilson, can decide how you feel about an issue.
Right.
One of the things that has really, I think, damaged news business and damaged credibility of journalists everywhere is we now have these opinion shows. And they're on both sides of the aisle. Right. I want to be very clear about that. But news and opinion are very, very different. But what's happened in the American public, I think, is you have to be a discerning, smart news consumer. So if you turn on an opinion show, you shouldn't expect that to be unbiased and factual. There's an agenda there. And again, that happens across, the spectrum. So I think to be an intelligent news consumer, and what I always encourage people to do, is to listen to everything. And the truth is you're going to find the truth, in the middle. Now, I, of course, believe, as I'm sure this won't surprise you, I believe that public radio and public television, for me, I find that to be the most unbiased, fair news out there. Because we don't give an opinion, we just gather the facts and lay it out. And we don't do it, Dean, in 30 and 60-second sound bites. How do you cover, gas prices, education, the economy, the banks, from last week, the banks going upside down? How do you cover that in 30 seconds or 60 seconds? You can't. So the great thing is if a story takes 13 minutes, it takes 13 minutes, and remember, we're set up very differently because the business model for commercial television and radio is making money. So if you listen to your local commercial radio station, and I'm not putting them down, they have a business model, it's just different than ours. 22 minutes of every hour is being sold away of your ears. 22 minutes of commercials an hour, Dean. So when you're listening, that's how they're making their money. When you listen to public radio, we're commercial free. We're supported by regular people like you and I, our donors, right? So if it takes 12 minutes, 13 minutes, 18 minutes, 5 minutes to tell a story, that's the time that we're going to take to tell that story. That's what I believe in so fervently. That's why I've dedicated my adult professional life to preserving something that I believe in. There's got to be an alternative source of news. It can't just be news on the right or news on the left. Right. It can't just be opinion pieces. It can't just be even the networks at 30 and 60 seconds. So for me, in the lane that I live in and work in, it's about bringing you and everyone in the Tri-Counties an alternative source for news, information, and cultural programming. And that's what we do.
So good. Before I forget, let's tell people how to find you.
Yes.
So obviously the dial is one place.
Right. You can find us a variety of places. You can go, if you're in Ventura County, at 88.3 FM. If you're in Santa Barbara, we're at two places. We're at 102.3 FM. or we're on the AM dial as well at 1340. And then you continue to go farther north. And my program director right now is cringing because I am not coming up with the dial positions for my northern stations, but
they can find
they
them.
can find them,
Yeah.
right? You can also go to kclu.org and get our program lineup and get all that. You can also download our podcast at the 101, or wherever you get your podcasts, you can get our podcast.
The 101.
The 101, and it's the 100H, the 101. Fantastic podcast, incredibly proud of the work we did. I mean, I'd like to just point everyone to our very first podcast. We did a story. I'm saying we, I'm speaking French. Our podcast producer and reporter, who's brilliant, Michelle Loxton, did a story on the fentanyl problem right here in our own backyard. It is one of the most powerful pieces of radio, Dean. I encourage you to listen to it. You will ever listen to.
Wow.
The access that she was given and her reporting was exceptional. I'm going to sound like an obnoxious mother who's bragging right now, but KCLU was just nominated last week for another 12 Golden Mike Awards by the LA Radio Television News Directors Association of Southern California for outstanding local news. And that is the hallmark of what we do, is when you should know what's happening not just around the world, but what's happening in your own backyard.
Right.
And in the era of media consolidation, which is what we're living in right now, which is terrible. It's not good for you, me, or anyone.
Right.
You've got 4 or 5 entities, as you know, that own most of the radio stations in the United States. And that's why public radio is so important, because when there's smoke in the air, Dean, or the ground is shaking, or there are mudslides, you need a source, not someone playing the latest Mariah Carey tune. You need someone who is going to say, here's what's going on. It's Lance Orozco, and he's on the scene, and he's in Santa Barbara.
Right.
That's why local news and local reporting is so very important.
1340 AM in Santa Barbara.
Yes, and 102.3 FM. So you have
102.3
2 different sources
FM,
in
and
Santa
then they have
Barbara.
the 100H1
Podcast.
So
Yes.
people can get it anywhere.
You can get it. If you just Google, if you just go to kclu.org, you will have everything you need to know about the station. And we archive all of our stories. We do a lot of work for fellow nonprofits, a lot of stories for fellow nonprofits throughout the community. We really believe in that. We want to lift their work up, and they do such great work. And we're also, boy, there's a fire, there's a mudslide, there's whatever, we're there. We've got, in the business, feet on street. We've got real people like you, real people doing real reporting, not just taking satellite news stories that go to, I own 10,000 stations. They all get the same Mariah Carey song followed by the same canned weather report. No, we're really doing news every day. And remember, we're a nonprofit. We're here to serve the community. So our mission is to be of service. And that's what we're committed to doing.
And so you're sitting here as the leader, 29 years, microphone on your necklace.
Yeah.
And so you can sit here and tell us, we don't have an agenda.
No, we do not. I can tell you that. We do not have an agenda. We have an agenda to serve you, to provide informational, educational, and cultural programming, to provide breaking news, to give you the news that you want and you deserve. But we don't get involved in politics. We don't get involved in anything. All we do is gather the facts and we present them to you. That's our only interest.
It's so refreshing.
It's our only interest,
I feel
Dean.
like that's just like a cup of cold water.
It is.
It's refreshing. In this environment, even me, I'm very consuming of news and culture and politics and everything. I think a lot about all of it. But I'm like, it's becoming impossible.
You know what that's called in the business now? I just read an article about this. You're experiencing news fatigue. And that's what they're calling it, news fatigue. And I understand that, especially when there's a lot of difficult news to cover and a lot of bad news. And consumers, listeners can only absorb so much of that before they go, oh my gosh, I can't, And I understand that. And that's why when you listen to KCLU, you're going to get all the important news that you need, but you're also going to get great local stories. You're going to get great local stories that are going to make you feel good and are going to highlight how great this region is that we live in.
And that's another important piece. And that's part of why we're here. Like, there's good stuff happening all over the place.
Absolutely.
And I think in the old school, of news. It was, and I think this is actually true. If it bleeds, it leads kind of thinking, which is...
That's true for commercial especially.
Yeah, I mean, people, if there's a problem, they want to know. But the good stuff is also happening every single day.
Every day.
Every day. All over the place.
All over the place.
Because we get to meet them here. I mean, we're meeting, and I'm like, I've never heard about this. Every time. Also, I can say that right now. I've never heard I mean, I knew something, but I didn't know. So, and I feel like every time I'm sitting across from somebody, I'm going, nobody knows about this. This is amazing. Whether they're starting a food pantry or mentoring kids or helping leaders become better leaders and love their people or doing news the right way. Like, I'm always shocked, and it's because there's no news coverage of it for the most part.
Well, I'll tell you, KCLU is the #1 news station in this entire region. I mean, consistently, we're the #1. We beat all the LA stations that you can hear out here. We beat all of them. We're by far the #1 news station. But there's always room for new people to find us, and always, room for new people to listen. And I always say this to people. I don't believe if anyone listened, they would ever be happy listening to anything else, any other commercial radio station. First of all, I'm not selling away 22 minutes of your time every hour. But also, you're going to hear, the news stories are not just the headlines, Dean. You're going to hear what's the meat and potatoes, what's really behind the headline. You're going to have rich ambient sound. You're going to hear local voices. And you're going to hear about things that are happening in your own backyard that you're going to go, wow. The other thing is we're still doing the old-fashioned kind of news that, you and I were trained on when we were in school, right? So we're still doing the county supervisor meetings. That's important. That affects our lives right here in the Tri-Counties. We're still, at night, for election, we're working until, all night kind of thing to make sure that we give you the returns as they come in. Because people care about who's elected to the school board or to this city council or that city council. So we're still doing the old-fashioned kind of news in a very modern way.
Boots on the ground.
Feet on the street, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Flip-flops. Anything you want to wear, we're doing it.
It's old school. I mean,
it's old school.
I say that as a compliment. Old school.
Yeah.
Like investigative reporting. Like whatever happened to that? I remember finding a story. Digging, figuring it out.
Yes.
And telling the truth. Like, oh, it's so refreshing to hear you say that. Just talking to the leader of a news organization who's telling me, we don't have an agenda.
We do
We're
not.
We're here to serve you and give you all the information.
We don't have an agenda.
Just so beautiful.
We do not have an agenda. We're here to serve you and all of your viewers, everyone listening. We are here to serve you. That is our purpose. That is our goal.
Yeah. I didn't think I would see the day in my lifetime. And I'm a guy, again, I loved radio. I thought I was going to be a broadcaster. And I kind of
you are a broadcaster.
I guess I am now.
You are a broadcaster. You just went to the dark side of television.
Right. Well, I have a face for radio.
No, that's our line. When we're on the air, we always say that. Well,
radio.
you know why we go into radio? Yeah. We have faces for radio.
My teeth are straight. What was I saying? No, I didn't think I'd see the day in my lifetime when you really had to figure out or think about whether you could trust some of the major news outlets.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just call them a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theory. I'm not a boogeyman behind every bush kind of a guy. Like, I'm not at all. But but I'll tell you the truth. The big three, even on television, or, a lot of the quote unquote mainstream sources, I don't feel like are square.
Well, you know what I think has polluted the environment is you have big personalities, both on radio and television, okay, and even columnists, in print, that it's their opinions, their columns and their shows are opinion shows. But it's confusing to a lot of consumers. Not every consumer is a sophisticated consumer. Not every consumer. They kind of think, I'm going to turn on the dial or pick up the paper, flip on, the TV, and it's all going to be truth. Because a million years ago, when I was little, that was if Walter Cronkite said it, you knew it was the real deal, right? But I think that what we have to do, we have to be smarter consumers, and we have to say, look, I I want to form my own opinion. Personally, I avoid all opinion shows. I have my own thoughts, and I will.
Tiring.
Well, and it's negative.
It's
First of all, it's negative, and I always
Yeah.
seek the positive and look for the best and work to the best. So it's negative, and that doesn't serve me.
Right.
So I kind of avoid the opinion shows, and I focus on unbiased reporting that we offer, that the BBC offers, that I still watch network television, and I just focus on the facts and not what a reporter thinks. And quite candidly, I think it's completely and absolutely inappropriate for any reporter to ever give their opinion about anything, because their opinion is candidly irrelevant.
So, exactly. When did we all start to think our opinions were so important?
Well, my opinion is very important in my house.
Right, to me and my wife,
Everybody needs
but
to
not
listen
to all
to
of
that.
America.
But what I
Yeah.
think, I've never, I will tell you, I'm asked to speak a lot, and I never accept any speaking engagements that have any sort of political bit ever.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate, because I would never want anyone to think, aha, now, she's influencing the news at KCLU. Absolutely not. And that's how Lance Orozco is, and the entire team. We don't involve ourselves in politics at all publicly, and we want everyone to know that our focus is solely on bringing the facts. That's it, just reporting the facts.
Oh, so great. Well, great work.
Thank
in
you.
Building this. I mean, you've really built this from
Thank
zero.
you. I am part of the original team that put KCLU on the air almost 29 years ago. And it's grown and developed, and we've been able to serve so many more people. Cal Lutheran, we're licensed to California Lutheran University, and they really did this altruistically. They really just wanted to serve the community. They had this license from the FCC. They hired a team. I was part of that team. We put the station on the air, and candidly, I think everyone kind of thought, well, some people in the Conejo Valley and Ventura County will listen, and that'll kind of be the end of it, But we expanded. People from Santa Barbara would start traveling through Ventura County on the way to LA, and they're like, God, this station's really terrific, Can you bring it to Santa Barbara? We had an opportunity to come to Santa Barbara. We expanded to Santa Barbara. Then people who lived in Santa Maria and the other part said, well, when we live here and we drive in and we work in Santa Barbara, we love the station. Why can't we hear it there? So we expanded, and now, as I said, we go from Westlake Village to San Luis Obispo. Wow. And we always want to continue to expand geographically, programmatically, add new services. Check out our website.
Yeah, KCLU.org.
I'm going to make you a devotee. You're going to love KCLU. I'm going to make you a list.
Sign me up.
I'm following up with you, Dean.
You
I'm
should.
quizzing you
I'm
in a few weeks to make sure you've been listening.
I'm in totally.
Good.
And I love this.
Good.
Because people need this.
They do.
The world needs this.
They do.
KCLU.org.
That's right.
KCLU.org. Mary Olson is her name. Love it. I need my necklace. I'm going to order one.
You know
Tell
what?
your husband.
I know.
If he's looking for a gift idea for me.
Did he score big with this? I'm telling you. Our first Christmas, he gave this to me. I'm like, all right.
No,
and then he looked at me and said, I win. I'm like, all right, you did, darn it. And I don't like losing, Dean.
Right.
So, but I had to give it to him. He won.
No, he did. He won big. Good work. Thank you for what you do.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for being positive. Thank you for just giving back to the community. This has been a real joy. I've really enjoyed it.
Love having you.
And I want to know, do I get to keep the mug?
You keep the mug. We got mugs, hats, T-shirts. It's going to be phenomenal. Just, it's all about the good life.
Good.
And by the way, Rotarian, we didn't even get to that.
Yes.
Rotarian through and through. So Westlake Club?
The Westlake Village Noon Club. And for anyone who doesn't know what it means to be a Rotarian, please Google Rotary.org. We're just trying to make the world a better place. You said your dad's a Rotarian. Rotarians, professional men and women that just want to make the world a better place. Who doesn't want that?
Serve. If you want to serve, Rotary is a great place to serve. So we're definitely big in Rotary. So yeah. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks
for coming. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.